So if you guys have been updated on my channel, I'm guessing you have seen that I've refuted 3 Jahilis who misinterpreted Islam and made false claims about the Quran. And apparently I was scrolling through YouTube and I saw this video right here. It's basically him talking about how Muhammad is a fake prophet by this one simple mistake in the Quran or something. So yeah, I'm gonna refute it. Also, make sure to join my Discord server, link in the description, as all types of content like debating philosophy, debating fiction, debating theology, packing, etc. And you can basically just do anything there. It's a server for anybody. It's fast growing, has over about 123 members. So yeah, make sure to join that.
For Islam, this one point alone is enough to show that he's a complete fraud. And once you see this, there's literally like no going back. If you've ever wondered whether Muhammad was a true prophet sent by God, you need to stay for this entire video because we're going to put him to the test. All right, so let's get right into it. So if there is a God and he does send us messengers to help guide us, then he's going to give us ways to tell like which ones are the real ones, which ones are the fake ones. But Muhammad makes a claim in the Quran that no true prophet ever would. And once you see how this plays out, it's actually just over. Like it's done. Like he's out. He's done. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a very simple test, a test that shows Muhammad's claim to being a prophet doesn't actually hold up. What's actually really cool about this test is that it doesn't rely on the Bible or on the New Testament or anything else. It's a sort of internal check to see whether or not a prophet is real, and Muhammad fails it miserably. All right, so let's break this down. So if God does send a prophet to guide us, there's a lot of different ways that he could use to make them sort of stand out. Miracles, for example, would definitely help. Or maybe these prophets could predict the future, giving us proof that they're connected to something beyond the natural world. These wouldn't necessarily prove that they're a prophet, but it would definitely help. But there's actually another way that I think is a little bit more reliable. So if God sends a series of prophets, he could have the earlier ones tell us what to expect from the later ones. And that way, when the next prophet shows up, we already have some clues about what to expect. Maybe it's like a name, maybe it's a specific place that they're from, or even certain characteristics that we should be on the lookout for. And of course, not every prophet needs to be foretold. The first prophet, for example, wouldn't have anyone to predict them. But if you are foretold by an earlier prophet, it's definitely something that you'd want to make clear, because I think that would be really, really good evidence. And here's where the problem with Muhammad starts to come in. Just like a con artist could lie and forge a signature, a fake prophet could also lie and say what they were foretold.
Oh my days, bro. Okay, so like for the rest of this video, like I don't think he even goes to Muhammad. He goes to Joseph Smith, and he barely even touches Muhammad in the actual video. So we're just gonna mainly talk about the important parts in this, about him claiming that because in this case, we obviously know that he's gonna object against Muhammad creating miracles, obviously. So I'll just name miracles that he did create. So I'm gonna be explaining 2 miracles, just only 2 miracles. So the first miracle is Muhammad splitting the moon in half, as you can see in this verse, which says "Iqtarabat as-saatu inshaqqa al-qamaru," which basically just talks about how the moon got split in 2 pieces. And here is a a sunnah from Sahih al-Bukhari, which says that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ cured Ali's eye by applying saliva to it, and invoked Allah to cure him once he did that, and at once he did get cured. So that right there is a miracle. You can check Farhan's video out. He explains that Muhammad created a lot of miracles and shows it's in the Quran and the Hadiths, and it's him basically refuting S3 and testify at the same time. So yeah, make sure to check this out too. And as you can see on screen, that shows him creating all types of miracles, including him saving Medina from drowning in rain. So yeah, we're gonna move on to the next part of him, I guess, refuting Muhammad.
The final messenger sent by God, not just to his own people, but to all of humanity. But Muhammad didn't just stop there. He also claimed that Jesus himself had foretold his coming. Muhammad said that Jesus, the very figure revered by Christians and known by secular historians for hundreds of years, had prophesied his arrival. According to Muhammad, Jesus predicted that a future messenger would come after him and his name would be Ahmed, which is basically just a variant of Muhammad's name. This claim was codified in Surah 61:6 of the Quran, which we'll take a look at in just a second. So let's put Muhammad's claim through the same 4-question test that we used for Joseph Smith. Question 1. Did a previous prophet predict your coming? Muhammad's answer: yes. He claimed that Jesus, the son of Mary, foretold his coming by name. In Surah 61:6 of the Quran, Jesus is quoted as saying, I am truly Allah's messengers to you, confirming the Torah which came before me and giving good news of a messenger after me whose name will be Ahmed. Now, obviously, this is questionable, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt, just like we did Joseph, and move on to the next question. Question number 2. Can we check this prophecy? Is there a record that we can verify? Muhammad's answer, no. I was foretold in these exact words by Jesus. However, all records of these exact words have disappeared. There is no document and no memories of this foretelling. We should actually take a moment and talk about how ridiculous this is from a historical standpoint. Let's start with the New Testament, which was written within 10 to 40 years of Jesus' death by people who either knew him directly or were close to the disciples. These are very, very early sources, much closer to the actual events than the Quran. You would expect something as monumental as a prophecy of a future prophet named Ahmed to at least appear in these very early documents. But as we examine the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we find nothing. There's no mention of a future prophet by this name or anything remotely like it at all.
So for the next 2 minutes, he just talks about things that can be debunked by mass transmission, like, for example, the apostles by the time of Jesus, and then they wrote these New Testaments, blah, blah, blah. Like, the people who wrote the New Testaments and the Old Testaments, they're all verified because these people who, had them verified were at the time of Jesus, which can easily just be debunked by mass transmission. If you guys don't know what's mass transmission, to simplify it by an example, it's basically like this. So, for example, how do we know the Holy Roman Empire existed? How do we know the Nazi German Empire existed or whatever? It's because everybody says this. Hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, billions of people can say this. And therefore, if all these billions of people say this, then they will come up to a consensus and it will become a historical fact. Just like how the Quran exactly says, or gives an example of mass transmission, to where, for example, in one verse in Surah Al-Imran, right, they talk about how they made it seem like Jesus was crucified, and they made it seem like that throughout history, and that right there is an example of mass transmission also. So in this case, everything he just said here is debunked by mass transmission. Now, to go over it once, you may be like, oh, so why would they do this? Why would they make this corruption? Why would they do all this stuff? Well, the reason for that, it's kind of simple. So as we know, Prophet Isa alayhi salam, right, was one of the greatest prophets in Islam, if not maybe the second greatest prophet ever. Alright, now here's one thing. So at the time of Prophet Isa, he created miracles, was the proclaimer of God, to teach the true morals of life and the true way on how to actually live life. And therefore, him performing all these miracles and him teaching all these unknown facts that weren't even known at the time and maybe even impossible to learn nowadays, made it seem like, made the people who followed him, for example, worship him. Because, another example of this is Jesus went to heaven while he was still alive. He never died. He was never crucified at all. He went to heaven while he was still alive. So that could be, once again, just a truthful example, or maybe not even just a truthful example. I don't even know if a truthful example is even a thing. I don't know what I'm even saying. But like, that could either just be a advocate of truth or a pure example on why they started corrupting the Injil and made it into the Bible they have now, or the corrupted scriptures they have now. So yeah, that's just basically it. We're gonna go over to his last point about like I forgot what was even his last point, but yeah, we're just gonna check it out.
To our next question. Question 3. Is there any other way to confirm this prophecy? Muhammad's answer, yes. He claimed that God re-revealed the exact words Jesus spoke, and these words were then passed down to him and recorded in the Quran. But the only source for this prophecy is in the Quran itself, a book literally written by Muhammad. We're left in the exact same situation as Joseph Smith. There is no outside verification. This leads us to our last question. Question 4. Who told you about this prophecy? Muhammad's answer? Me. And again, just like with Joseph Smith, this makes the prophecy impossible to verify. It's his word against, well, nobody else's. There's no independent confirmation, no other records, just Muhammad's claim that God told him Jesus said it. So here's the parallel between the two cases. Both Joseph Smith and Muhammad claimed that a previous prophet predicted their coming, and both said...
Now, this is just going to be a short debunk. Alright, first off, the Quran wasn't written by Muhammad. This guy did not study anything about Islam. He probably just got this from people like Testify, Apostate Prophet, maybe Avery, David Wood, or some other people. They're all ass, by the way, but besides that, my guy, let me tell you something. The first Quran ever written, okay, was at the time, oh no, not even at the time, after the time of Prophet Muhammad, about maybe a decade later, a few years later, or 20 years later. Okay, the oldest manuscript of the Quran we have is the Birmingham manuscript, which was written down 20 years after the time of Prophet Muhammad. Now you might be like, oh well, if it was written 20 years after the time of Prophet Muhammad, then how do we know if it's verified? Well, here's the thing. One, no Quran was written at the time of Prophet Muhammad. The reason why was because, the angel Jibril, or Gabriel, right? He didn't actually give a book down. He didn't send a book down. He gave Muhammad the revelations. And what happened here is that these revelations became scriptures, and as time and time went on, full revelations happened, and Muhammad's colleagues and Muhammad himself orally memorized all these revelations, and therefore Muhammad's colleagues and the people that followed Muhammad, because as we know, Muhammad was the most influential person of all time on the most secular and religious level. He had influence outside of 7th century Arabia and outside the Arabian Peninsula even. So going by this, Muhammad and all other people who followed him had oral memorization of the Quran. Now when I say all other people followed him, I'm just giving simplicity in the sake, but yeah, they were able to write down these scriptures and write down the Quran through oral memorization. So kind of simple about that. Guys, so this is just the end of this video. This guy is a Jahil, he's a kafir, he's not competent, do not listen to him. And I just wanted to know, alhamdulillah, may God bless you, everybody who's watching this video, and mashallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother.